All right, welcome back for the episode of Carnivore Trades. Today is Friday, October 20th, 2023. If you're not done so already, please give the video a thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com for swing trading alerts and analysis. Anyways, let's get into it here today. So markets here selling off pretty sharply. Oh my God, Black Monday coming. Black Monday is confirmed. Or is it? We'll see about that. Markets here down 1.25%. The day after the 36th year anniversary of 1987 crash. So is it going to be a Black Monday? Well, let's see. Let's take a look at the charts here. So we did close below that 200 period moving average for the first time. You got to go all the way back to March here. So that was it right there. And I talked about this, mentioned it in these videos, also mentioned it on Twitter, mentioned it in Discord for members here. But, intraday, they're going to take it right here, which is where the 200 was. They'll bounce it up, then they're going to spike it down. They got to get, and I've talked about this lately too. What if it's just a 1, 2, 3? Never liked this squeeze. I've made that very clear. Said we never built supports. I didn't trust that gap up on Monday. And what if it's kind of a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Right? So that looks like it could be the case here. And why is what the logic behind that is, everybody last week was calling for end of year rally, right? So tells me a lot of people probably bought calls, and it is options X here, October of the month of October today, and that a lot of time we get a lot of people on one side of the boat. It just needs to go the other way, right? How do you scare people? I talked about this the last day or two. How do you get if you want to take it up to the end of the year, how do you get the bulls out? You get to close to the 200, you bounce, everybody thinks it's over, and then you spike that. You get them to stop out. Take a look at what happened the last 30 minutes or so. I think some stops got triggered there, probably. I will say the bulls, here's your positive. You never, and this is the SPY here, we never took out this green bar low, so that's 420.60, and we also didn't take out the 420.18 level on the 3rd of October. If we look at the SPX cash, same thing. So low here is 42.19.55, and we closed 5 points above that, and then here's your actual low, 42.16.45. So that's your positive. For bears, I think you kind of wanted to get below that just to slam the door shut on the close. But for what it's worth, you had a weekly close below the 200 MA. And any way you look at that, it's got to be respected. Now, we did have 1, 2, 3, a 3-bar sell into support. So generally, you could get a pause Monday, you could get a bounce, something of that nature. But there is something going on here in this market, right? I'm going to be watching credit spreads pretty closely over the next couple of days. They are widening. I wouldn't say they're at a concerning level just yet. I'd say we start getting about 4.5, then maybe it's, we could look at something. That's kind of what happened in March. We got up to, above 5, and then the Fed stepped in. That's something to watch here. But you look at other things like, XLF down 1.5, that did take out the lows. I've told you guys about this. KRE, that's got to hold this area, and it was unable to. And you can make a case too that this here is a head and shoulder. Don't really love that right shoulder, but the point is you took out that trend line and you took out that pivot on a weekly close. So that is not a good sign for financials, and obviously this is a financial driven problem, right? Bond yields ripping higher every day, especially on the 30-year, which is supposed to be the most stable asset, is not a good sign. Another thing that has me concerned here is TLT was green today. So the whole story, right, has been yields up, stocks down, stocks panicking. Today was kind of the opposite, stocks down heavily and TLT green. Is that a sign that there's a flight to safety going on? It could certainly be. Take a look at gold as well. That did power up again. It did come off the highs. We talked about this resistance level, the 2,000 whole round number. Didn't quite get to 2020, which would have been the 75% retrace. But there certainly has been some type of a risk-off move. Additionally, looking at XLU, yes, it did roll over, but it's had a really nice run off the lows. XLP was green most of the day, finished down 26 cents. When the bottom fell out of everything else in the last half hour. Why am I talking about those? Well, they're risk-off sectors, they're traditional risk-off sectors, and they're starting to outperform the spiders on a relative basis, while TLT is green on the day. Now, this isn't a major buy signal. If we had an engulfing reversal with heavy volume, then I would say there's something really wrong. But right now, it's just a thing we're looking at. And they always do this, right? Market makers, like I just mentioned, they didn't, we closed below the 200, but you didn't close below this green bar and you didn't close below this. So they're never going to make it easy. But I will say, maybe we'll find out. I mean, I'm sure if there's a problem, we'll find out over the weekend. If there's some bankruptcies or something going on. And I wouldn't even entertain this idea, but look at the chart of KRE, right? These guys have BTFP. They have the Fed's discount window, and it still can't get out of its own way. And the XLF as well. Morgan Stanley, we talked about the other day, that's new 52-week lows. VNQ here didn't close below this pivot, but I mean, let's be honest, right? You close below, well, on a weekly anyway, we close below this pivot again. So, XHB, another one. So housing, these are things that are getting wrecked by rates, right? It's almost as if the Fed's trying to break something. Maybe something is broken, right? So that could be a thing. If nothing happens, could we squeeze up? It's certainly possible, right? The lows still could be in. Maybe they just did this to scare everybody. Maybe a lot of calls were bought here, and this is just an OPEX dump. It certainly could be the case. My guess is, though, and my thoughts, if you follow me, we got a gap down, though, right? If we're going to put in a low, we got a gap down, preferably a nice tail and then a reversal. I would be very cautious if we gapped up, unless it was like, we had a 5-point gap on the spiders. Like if you gap above, if you gap up to like 426, okay, yeah, then we could probably squeeze up and the lows could be in. That would be kind of an exception, not so much the rule. But yeah, pretty good sell here. And it's almost as if interest rates matter after all. Where would I be looking for a low if we do continue down? There's a lot of support in this area right around 415. If there's some major bankruptcy, credit problems like that, I don't know if that holds. I can't really predict what could happen there. I'd have to see how we open, how much volume is, being traded that day, and what the VIX is doing on Monday. Speaking of the VIX too, I don't really have this going too much higher here, which tells me it could be, again, this could just be a lot of OPEX stuff. I know a lot of the flow today was 0DTE related. So, the VIX not reacting, but gold was and TLT was. So you got to respect the market here. But my guess still is that they're doing a lot of this because too many people, and I saw a lot of them, including myself, calling for an end of year rally here, but, not all in, right? We did buy the dip here. We sold part of our position. We stopped out in the second half, and now you reevaluate it. That's how it's done. By the way, took a couple more winners today. Took a winner on silver and on DLTR, Dollar Tree. So pocketing those in a down tape, not terrible. Anyways, let's move on here. So spiders below the 200 MA. We'll have to see where we open next week. It's really that simple. It could go either way. But preferably, I'd want to see for bulls, I'd want to see a gap down, and then you look for a flush, and if we can reverse that in V shape, then we can put in a low. But a gap up would have me a little concerned. Triple Qs here down 1.5. Again, still holding lows, and here's your positive, right? You don't have a weekly close below this pivot. So I told you guys that if that pivot gets taken out on a weekly, this has, a date with 320 most likely. There's no support here on the weekly. So you can go down just as quickly as you went up, especially if there's panic. But right now, Qs, holding that area. We did close below. It does look like, yeah, we did close below that green bar though. So for what that's worth, so that was that Friday reversal from 2 weeks ago. We did close below that on the triple Q. So we will keep that in the back of our minds here. Russell 2000 still can't get out of its own way. That should go to 165. It's almost there now. And that would complete that head and shoulder target. It might even overshoot a little bit if you get kind of, panic and flushing, maybe to double bottom. But again, I've talked about this all summer, and, I complained about this, but, everybody calling for a new bull market. But this is, to me, nothing more than a bear wedge. And if I see small caps doing that, I'm sorry, I just can't be bullish. At least not in the big picture anyway. But in any case, Russell down 1 1/3. Dow down 82 basis points, closing below 331.45. It is above this green bar low though. And again, Dow, it should be more of a risk off index. So it makes sense that wasn't, anywhere near those lows. But again, that is below the 200 moving average as well. So take that into consideration. If we do continue down, 325 should be support. Again, you got a 1, 2, 3 sell. Maybe we bounce Monday, Tuesday. We'll see. But I, wouldn't rule anything out here. We could retrace, going back to the spiders. There's nothing to say we don't retrace here and then just drop again. And by the way, we're not even, you're going to hear people say we're oversold. There's the 20 moving average. We were there yesterday. So we're not even anywhere near stretched from that 20. So lots of things can happen here. All right. Semiconductors via the SMH down 1.5 here and closing below that green bar here. Positive is you're not below this green. That could get to the 200 moving average pretty fast if we keep selling. And you guys know I think ultimately it needs to go to 129. Let's look at NVIDIA here because everybody's going to talk about it. It basically closed right on that neckline. We'll say that's below. So I'll call that a triggered head and shoulders. And you guys know what I'm going to say though. The only problem I have with it is that you're going to see this chart 1,000 times over the weekend, which means a lot of people are going to try and short it. So if we get any sort of good news, this could squeeze up to 450 really fast. So just be aware of that. But at face value, that's a triggered head and shoulders on the weekly. IGV finally meeting its match. This has been a strong one. And, with the market down as much as it is, it just couldn't hold it. But to be fair, again, above that green bar. And you kind of got this, again, we talked about this trend line, little wedge pattern potentially on the IGV. And it's, it's above that. So relative strength for cloud software. If you start to take this out, well, then we're looking at, 315 and then maybe even 305. But IGV down 2.5. Transports here, go figure, right? So this has got to be OPEX, right? So up 10 basis points in a tape that got slaughtered. But you did get, a weekly close below the last several pivots. So I think this has got to go to 14K regardless. But funny to see the transports up here, basically flat in a tape that got slammed. There is a little bit of short-term support right here. This is where you broke out previously, but this trend line, I think, and then kind of right in this area, 14,000 is really your bigger area here, which again, I do think it needs to get tested. All right, let's get over here to interest rates. So as always, we'll start off with the 2-year, and that came in very sharply back below that power bar. And there's your 210 spread. Look at that. So only inverted by 16 basis points now. That's your big positive for the market, at least right now, is that the yield curve is uninverting. Now, this could mean that we're coming close to a recession. It could mean something's breaking as well. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. We just don't really know yet. But it is starting to uninvert there. And you can see 3-month 10-year. That actually came back in. So not great there. And this is a 3-month. But in any case, the 2-year pulling back in at 5.07. Pattern-wise, it's still fine. But it did come back in pretty sharply. 5-year came down as well. Barely just kissed that 5% level, 4.997. And pulling back in. The 10-year pulled back as well after hitting 5%. And the 30-year high of the day, 5.146, pulled back also. Yields, I think, are really stretched here. But you can't rule it out. I can't rule out them pushing a little bit higher. I just will say, though, that like on the monthly, you're basically parabolic now. So I do think yields here are due for a correction, but we're in kind of a panic mode right now. So things can always go higher. So keep that in mind. And we'll see. But, if there is something breaking, then I think yields come in very quickly. But right now the trend is still up. Anyways, XHB, we talked about this. So don't buy that 200 moving average. It's minor and we're pushing lower. Gap fill at 69.84. So $70. I've been telling you guys need to go test that. That is in play next week. maybe even a little bit lower, right to that pivot, 68.50, 69, but right in that vicinity. Did close below the 50-week moving average too, but there should be a lot of support right here for the XHB. But again, high rates finally weighing down on housing. It's about time. VNQ down 49 cents. I mentioned this earlier. Your positive is that you closed 6 cents above this pivot low, and that's the only positive I can find. The only other thing about this is that perhaps it's so oversold that everything is priced in. But I mean, you got a monthly inside bar, and that is playing out to the downside. So just keep that in mind. XLF we talked about, again, closing below 32.21 by 1 penny. That's not an accident, just so you know. There is some support at 32 and then 31.50. So watch those levels next week. KRE, this is a problem. Yeah, we'll say 36 right now. That's probably the best I can give you. But this is a very, very, very weak close on very heavy volume. That's not a good sign for the market. KBE, same thing, weak close. We'll say this got some support at 33.70 and then 32. It's not good to see financials do this. KBWB, double bottom, right? That's it. Look at the weekly. So bear pattern there. Broker dealers, lower low, probably wants 450. All right, over to energy and commodities. So crude down 21 cents here. Hitting that 90 handle, and we pulled back. So again, I told you guys, I don't think it's going to go much through that. We'll see what happens. If it puts in a pattern, then it can go higher. But short term, it is pulling back. The positive is you are above those moving averages and the trend is up. But I think energy or crude really specifically is in kind of backing and filling mode. But it's holding up and we'll respect it. Watch that 90 handle, watch for pattern. If it flags up, then it can go into the low 90s again. XLE here, pulling back. So possible lower highs there on the XLE. Still a strong name. I don't like how you ran up in a straight line here. I just don't like the move. It looks kind of panic bid, but again, it's holding up. I still think this needs to do some more backing and filling. Same thing with XOP, kind of panic bid type look. Possible lower high there. The positive is you took out the high from September, but it did close back below 150, or I should say that not 150, but 150.32, which was that previous red bar high. On a weekly, I'm still just kind of neutral on this right now. OIH, same thing. Pretty good outside candle, down 2% on the day. Weekly is still okay. I just don't love that gap there. Uraniums, look at CCJ here. That's holding up okay. So closing at 38.19. I just don't like the weekly failed inside bar pattern. And I think this is into corrective mode, backing and filling mode. Same thing with URNM, although it did close the week green, so we'll respect that for now. Nat gas continuing to pull in here. Did come off the lows today. You're into a lot of support there on the daily. We'll see what that does next week. Very, very oversold on the 4 hour. I'm not so sure if this was OPEX related too. Kind of like the market here. A lot of people calling for an end of year rally there. Maybe they got whipped out. A lot of people trying to buy this, looking for a bull flag. Certainly possible, but nat gas did pull into that level. We'll see what it does next week. Dollar index. Very strange, right? So dollar just not doing anything this week, right? Pretty much sideways. Just finishing barely below that 20 moving average. It's minor, but it did finish below it. Nothing terrible. Pattern wise though, guess what? It's fine. Bullish inside bar, right? No real problems. You do have weekly resistance right there with that little breakdown. But if this consolidates, this can go higher. There's really nothing to say it doesn't. And again, if there is some type of panic, the dollar can run. So just be aware of that. But right now it's just kind of stuck in this area. Gold here we talked about briefly beforehand, testing 2,000 and pulling back in. It's basically a fear trade right now. So we'll see what kind of pattern this puts in. If fear subsides somehow, or geopolitical fear subsides somehow, this can go down really fast. Because again, you didn't build any support on the way up. It's just kind of a fear bid. I'm not saying that you should short it because you could get wiped out if this ends up being an impulsive move. But we'll see what it does. It's into 2,000. It should have to do some backing and filling. First support we'll look at is right around 1950, 1945. If we could extend this old trend line out a little bit, possibly in that area. And you got those moving averages in there as well. You could also take a fib too. Let's see if there's a fib that lines up. Yeah, so right there's your 382. So 1940, somewhere in that area. But gold obviously having a strong week. And again, I told you I don't like that weekly close below that. But the positive was always that you're above that green bar. So this pattern here on the monthly is still bullish until proven otherwise. Anyways, silver here to take some profits on today. Nice gain on that. 4 members up 2% on the day. Got really close to that 24 handle. I think this needs to pull back here. First area probably around 2250, and then 22 and 2150 in the short term. But they could just flag and then push up. But pattern-wise, again, still very extended. All gold and silver both extended, and I wouldn't be surprised to see some backing and filling there. Platinum still hanging in there as well. Still looking for pattern on that one, and palladium also can't get out of its own way and can't participate in this rally, but that's okay. Let it come down. Let it get there. That's where I'm looking for it, right there. So let platinum do its thing. Copper closing at 355 here, down 1 1/3. Didn't take out this low, but it's looking like more of a bearish consolidation base for a move to 340. Okay, lastly, Bitcoin, again, impressing. Again, is this acting risk off? Is it trying to be risk off? Is there another last time Bitcoin ran like this, I talked to you guys about KRE a minute ago and how it was a breakdown. Last time Bitcoin ran like this was when KRE broke down. We had the Silicon Valley Bank issues. You do have a higher high. Obviously didn't close above that, but you did make a higher high. That's a positive. That's certainly a positive here. Now, weekly, so Sunday night, this is what I want to see. Let's draw it in here. Where's our tools? So 30,086. That's going to be the big level. I'll get that exact for you. Yeah, exactly. 30,086. So right there, that's your level. If we're above that, that negates this red bar and Bitcoin turns bullish. Because we would defer to a weekly failed bear pattern and we would defer to a monthly bull pattern on Bitcoin. So we'll watch that by the end of the week. But Bitcoin acting well and holding up. Let's look at ETH too. Still on the weaker side. So it looks to me, these alts here, not really participating. This does smell more like a flight to safety. So I guess that could be a positive for Bitcoin, because that's apparently what it's intended to do, right? And again, very interested, right? Like the last time this happened was KRE blowing up. So we'll see what happens here. But Bitcoin acting well, and watch that level 30,086 Sunday night close. Anyways, lastly for the spiders here, just want to check the futures really quick. See if yeah, so they're basically flat. All right, so in any case, daily close below the weekly close below the 200 moving average. Positive is you close above this green bar and this red bar. You have a 1, 2, 3 down, so we could get a bounce, but I would be skeptical of a gap up on Monday unless it's unless they wipe out, like we wipe it out in the morning. Like you have to gap up high and leave this kind of hanging. I don't see that happening. I think Bitcoin could be telling us something. I don't like what I'm seeing from KRE. I don't like what I'm seeing from XHB. I don't like what I'm seeing from VNQ and TLT potentially. So again, bonds here. I don't know. Did something break? We'll find out over the weekend, I guess. But yeah, definitely an eventful week here. And we'll see what we get next week. Anyways, guys, I'm going to wrap it up here. You guys take care. Come find me on carnivoretrades.com. I will talk to you guys all next week.